solar power has always been one of the most attractive forms of renewable energy, and Africa has the ideal climate for solar energy generation. But despite this, after all these years, the technology doesn't seem to have had the expected impact. Omron is a Japanese company that specializes in industrial automation and electrical components, and they seem to think this might be changing. Jacques Labuschagne is Omron's National Project Manager. Jacques, welcome to Tech at Work.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, a lot of businesses in Africa have a double-barreled conundrum that they're dealing with. In order to do business, they have to have a consistent power supply, but they also have to be cognizant of environmental policies and strategies and responsibilities. And this is especially important for sectors like manufacturing and mining. Can you manage both aspects in this day and age, and especially when you're dealing in a less developed continent?
Yes, you probably can. I think we just need to be smarter in the way we actually generate power, especially solar side, as it's something that technology is growing bigger and bigger into. I think as mentioned before, the coal in South Africa, the big problem we've still got in South Africa is that the coal is cheap. But then again, compare us to the European countries, our biggest disadvantage and the biggest advantage probably is the fact that we got the sun. But a disadvantage of it again is that we don't get any payback for the money from Eskom. That's, I think, where Europe is actually leading with the solar installations and the energy as this stands now. Yeah, the problem we got a lot of sun, but we cannot generate at night time. Where in Europe, yes, they do generate during the daytime, but at night time they actually get to a point where they generate back into the grid and they can use it at night time. So I think that's probably the biggest problem we got in South Africa, or Africa, for that matter. Yeah.
Okay, you've raised a whole lot of points, so let's unpack it from the top. The biggest thing, obviously, coal is what we're using in South Africa, and it also generates to our fellow countries. It is a cheap source of power, but it's also very detrimental to the environment. And that, a lot of people say, yes, solar is fantastic, we've got the abundance of sunlight, but it's an expensive form of energy. So how can we mitigate that? How can we mitigate the initial expensive upfront cost across the board?
I think, like I said before, the biggest problem we got is the fact that, yes, we can, in South Africa, we only got half of the time to actually generate power. We need to try and find a way to actually generate the power back into the grid, and at night time to get the power back. That's the biggest problem we got currently.
But now we have had discussions around, getting IPPs into the national grid for some time, and assisting Eskom in power generation. There is a lot of plans, the IPAP plans, and so forth. What's taking? Is it just a lot of bureaucracy? Why is it taking so much time to get this going when people are so willing to do their part to feed the grid?
Yeah, I think the big problem currently is probably with Eskom. We only got one supplier of energy, so obviously they might lose a bit of business that way.
So it's a monopoly strategy.
Could be, because if you look at European, it's not just one supplier of electricity. And if you compare to South Africa, there's only, even if you look at Swaziland, it's still Eskom supplies them. And that's where we got a problem. We cannot generate the power back into the grid to use it at night time. So we got 50% efficiency in South Africa, and that's why a lot of people don't want to actually invest in the technology. Like you said, it's expensive. Your return on investment is probably between 14 and 15 years, because you only got 50% of the sun you can use, or 50% of the time you actually get your money back.
But there are some companies that are investing. I mean, you've got a partnership with Itel Tile where you're fitted out one of their showrooms with solar solar system. How did that work, and how's that working for that company?
It will work well because Itel Tile only works during the daytime. So their business hours between 9 and 5. So yes, then for them it's worth looking at the benefit. For most other households, other companies, it's not worth looking at it because 24/7 there's not power 24/7. Also, if you really need to generate a lot of power, you look at your power plants, power stations. You need a lot of ground to actually put your solar panels down. Per square meter, it's quite a lot of. You need a lot of space to be able to generate power.
So does that make sense for the big manufacturers? What about the big mining houses?
Big mining houses, the problem is the amount of kilowatts or megawatts they need to put up a megawatt power plant. Just for 10 kilowatts, you look about 80 square meters. So if you calculate that, you need a lot of space to be able to do it. But at the ends, people like the branches, the shopping centers, that makes a lot of sense for them to actually put it up.
Because they're 9 to 5 daytime.
Yes, 9 to 5 daytime. It makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of benefits doing it that way because they actually get all advantage right through during the day.
Now, for our viewers that don't know a lot about solar power and photovoltaic energy, can you explain the technology to us in layman's terms?
Okay, you actually get two types of panels. You get a polycrystal panel and a monocrystal type of panel.
Which one makes more sense for Africa?
A couple of years ago, there was a big difference between poly and mono. Poly was not as great as mono. The technology grew actually tremendously in the last 2 years. That yes, polycrystal, big difference, a little bit bigger space that you need to put it down. But yeah, there's much juice between the two. What actually happens is silicone and phosphorus inside the solar panel itself. The sun excites it, generates DC power, catch it with an inverter. Inverter then converts that DC power back into AC again. So yeah, in short, that's basically how it works. So they take the sun, similar to a tree or a flower.
So it's not that complicated.
No, it's not complicated
But Jacques,
at all.
you've mentioned it changed over the last few years. We're running out of time. What is the future of photovoltaic? And is there something else on the horizon that perhaps makes more sense for the African continent?
I think we need to look at solar. Definitely, yes, there's wind power as well, but there's only two types you can actually get power from the nature. One of them is the sun or the wind.
And we have both in abundance.
Yes, we do have both in abundance, but as it stands now, I'm of the opinion that solar is definitely going to take off.
It's just a case of education, investment, and seeing the long-term plan.
Yeah. We need to get Eskom to buy into the idea that we actually need to generate, they need to store energy, get the meters to run back. That will make then a lot more people will invest in it.
Well, let's hope. Jacques Lipskaghi, thank you very much. Well, we've come to the end of this week's show, but you can catch part 1 on abndigital.com or any of our previous shows. Until next week, from me, Natasha Jacobs, and the Tech at Work team, it's goodbye and thank you for joining us.